But I always start whenever I feel inspired, and that moment already happened. Yeah.
Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Belgian Jasper. If this is your first time in the channel, hit subscribe right now.
Mark of Epica, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. As we're talking, it's about a year and a half after the release of Omega. What a year, or what a year and a half for Epica, and in the weirdest way, maybe one of the best years in your career when the world had its worst year.
Yes.
What does that do with you? Like, that must be a very weird experience where there's so much for you to be really excited and happy and thankful for, but there's also, both professionally and in, I'm sure, your personal life and everybody around you, so much horrible stuff to deal with as well. Like, what was that like?
Yeah, it's a year of extremes, like you say. Yeah, there's so a lot of things to be really thankful for and happy about. But yeah, also that dark cloud above your head. Yeah, but I always try to keep seeing it from the positive side. The glass is half full or half empty. I always try to see it half full, because yeah, there's so many things that we got, so many things that went really well. And people keep asking us, but are you not sad about the tours that could not take place? And now you have to start touring so long after the album. Isn't that weird? I say, no, everything was weird this 1.5 years or even 2 years. So it's about improvisation. The thing is, it's the way it is. You can either accept it or all the time fight against it. But you're not going to change it anyway. So you can better accept it and find your way through it and find your moments of joy in the new situation, because life is too short to just complain and all these things that happen, be a victim of the circumstances. I always try to turn it around and use everything for your advantage. So there's always challenges on your path. So even if there's no COVID, there's always other things, like when a family member dies, or so there's always things happening in everybody's lives. But you can always make the best out of it, and that's what we did, and we always waited patiently for the opportunities that would eventually come again, and they did.
Can we find the lightning that shines inside our mind?
You know, maybe the best word to describe Epica is balance, from the music, from the themes that you guys bring, but also within the team. It seems there's always a lot of joy and banter on stage. In interviews we see that as well, but I also know from speaking to other members in the past that everybody has very different characters, opinions, politics to some extent as well. Having this balanced approach, is that one of the secrets behind the, well, quite stable lineup that Epica has had, and now 20 years already?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, balance is a good word with everything, with the music, with the members. Like you said, there's many different personalities, but everybody has an equal say in the band. So when we discuss things, everybody has an equal say, and also everybody has its responsibility. So I always think, like, when there's a band with one leader who decides everything, you see a lot of people coming and going, because it's not fun to be in such band, I think, at least, and you see that also happening. But also when you have the perfect democracy where everybody discusses eternally, it doesn't work as well. So if everybody has their responsibilities and still we discuss and take everybody seriously, I think that's the best way. So that's the balance part, I think, as well.
Talking about that longevity, and you know, obviously don't want to make you feel very old right now, but it has been 20 years since Sahara Dust was started and then turned into Epica after a year roughly. We're celebrating this with a lot of things right now. There's reissues, there's a special show coming out, but we finally also have the live at Paradiso show being released. This show was recorded 15 or 16 years ago.
Yes.
Epica, of all the things that you are, you're a very professional band now. You have a professional team around you. When you look back at that show and see, you know, somebody 16 years younger play those songs, is that easy for you to look at, or are you like, no, I don't want to see it because I'm just gonna pinpoint all the things that we could have done differently and so on?
No, I don't look at it like that. I look at it like with the eyes of how I was back then. Also, yeah, when I see the footage, I'm surprised about some things. Like, oh, I completely forgot how I was acting on stage back in the days, and then I remember it. It feels like sometimes like a different person. But yeah, you're looking at yourself, but it doesn't give you an uncomfortable feeling. Maybe some people, when they look back at their younger self, they have an uncomfortable feeling, but I totally don't have that. I know that back then we did the best we could. So even if you learned many things along the way, I don't blame myself back in the days for not knowing that yet. I did my best. Everybody did. And I think it's still a great document, and I'm really happy that it's finally going to be released. Especially for the fans from the old days, the early days, it's something they have been waiting for a long time, and now, and maybe for the new fans it's a bit less relevant, but if they give it a chance, maybe they're gonna enjoy it too. But definitely for the fans from the early days, that's gonna be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I am one of those guys, like, you know, I was probably the perfect age, the perfect time living at the time in Belgium, closer to that whole, let's call it Dutch symphonic scene that was popping up in the late 90s, early 2000s. And then, you know, Epica was one of these new hot bands that was getting a lot of traction. All of a sudden, record company goes bust. And that a lot of question marks, I'm sure, because, you know, a lot of cool projects and bands on that record label. Was that, looking back now, was that like, especially because you're earlier in your career and so many things that you don't know about, was that like the big oh shit moment in your career?
Yeah, in a way, yes. The other hand, we were like, okay, this happened. Let's make the best out of it. And so we had quite some challenges because we had the studio booked, and our record company was going to pay for it. And suddenly we had no record company paying for our studio, while we didn't want to rush into a new record company because it takes time to negotiate, to find a good one, to see which one is the best fit. Because we didn't see it coming. So from one day to the other, you suddenly have no label and you have to look for a label while you have the studio booked, and we didn't want to give it up. So we luckily found my father, who owned an own company, to fund the studio part. And he said, I believe in you guys. You can pay me back whenever it works for you, when you have a new record company. I believe in you. Let's do it like this. So that was fortunately right away a big burden off our shoulders, but then still we had to do the negotiations. We were really far with one label, and then Nuclear Blast, who was initially not interested because for the reason they had already signed After Forever,
right?
And they didn't want to have two of these bands. But then I sent them 3 songs when we already recorded them in the studio, and suddenly they were very interested because they loved the new songs. And then things went fast. So we were really far in the negotiations with another label. But then Nuclear Blast came. We did fly there, or drove even there. We did one evening negotiations, and we basically the next day we signed the deal. It was really fast. They came, they saw, and they won.
One more time. Don't be afraid, participate, just leave us.
Right at that time, you guys also made the Score album, which was like a soundtracky kind of album. Maybe not really considered part of the full albums now. I don't know how you look back on that. But one particular song of that album was a reworked version called Solitary Ground, a ballad. And I remember from back in those days that the band was kind of trying to push or hoping that this would be like the More Than Words song of Extreme that now millions of people know without a clue it's a hard rock band, have that radio hit. That didn't really play out, but as a result of that, you guys went full force ahead with the, more metal approach, a heavier approach. And, long story short, here we are, 20 years later, and you're at probably the height of your career, which few bands at 20 years can say. Do you look back on that in the same way, that this was maybe an unexpected gift, that you didn't have this ballady hit?
Yes, I completely agree, because actually we were never chasing for that hit ourselves. It was mainly Transmission Records
Right.
It was their dream to have a big hit with one of their bands, and they thought we were the biggest chance for that. So they always pushed it a little bit for us to write a few songs that they had a chance with. While we were like, we want to have complete freedom.
Yeah.
Still, we wanted to make them sometimes a bit happy. So then you come up with sometimes a nice version that could work for them. But since we signed with Nuclear Blast, they gave us 100% complete freedom. Like we also negotiated. We said, yeah, we had this experience, and we feel like completely doing the way we want it. We don't want a hit. Yeah, if it happened, even with one of our songs that were not meant for it, so be it. But we're not chasing for it. And Nuclear Blast said, you can do whatever you want. And from there on, we became even more heavy, I think, because then we had the 100% freedom to do whatever we want.
And now you are at a place where you've got almost 1 million albums sold. You've got over 300 million streams. So clearly it was the right strategy.
Because we saw some bands, they were, after the success of Within Temptation, they were becoming softer. And we thought we definitely should not do that. We actually the opposite. We should become heavier. That's how we feel it. That's what we want to develop, and that's what we did. Yeah.
And now you're in a position where there's a whole team around your band, there's a lot of professionalism. Details matter. The branding is on point. You've got many more people that support the band than ever before. You've come a long way from writing songs in your grandmother's basement, 25 years ago. Do you sometimes take that step back and go like, oh shit, like this is crazy? Or are you too much living in the moment and looking ahead for reflection?
Yeah, sometimes I do look back, and then especially when there's times like these, when you have real releases and for the first time release of Paradiso, then you get to see the footage, and then automatically also the thoughts go back in the days. And now that we celebrate that we play a show with Sahara Dust as our own support act, then you go back in time, and the good memories always remain. So also now to study some of the old songs that we haven't played in a long time, that brings back good memories. And then also you see again, the way I was writing back in the days was pretty different from the way I'm writing music now. But it doesn't necessarily one is better than the other, but it's just different, and that's also good that it's different, because otherwise you would get the same album again and again. So that development is good, but it's sometimes nice to look back and then figure out, oh, this is how I was thinking back in the days, and that's fun.
Back in those early days, were you more like, hey, we're doing something fun, we believe in it, we're gonna build it, but we don't look too far ahead? Or were you more a Steve Harris that was like, in 20 years from now we're gonna be the biggest band in our genre? And the shows that you're doing now on festivals like Wacken yesterday, and thank you for taking a call the day after Wacken, that's crazy.
You're welcome.
Was that always in your mind, like you had a vision and this is where we're going?
Yeah, I was definitely a kind of Steve Harris, even though I was not looking too far ahead. For me, it was always important to look like 1-2 years ahead, because looking too far ahead, things always never happen exactly the way you imagine it anyway. So I thought it's useless to look too far ahead, but when you look like 1-2 years, you can already plan enough to make big steps forward. But now, after all those years, more and more, I started delegating, and everybody having their responsibilities, and that's a good thing, because in the past I was doing too many things at the same time. Maybe I also had the energy more for it. I was so young. I could do everything at the same time, drive the van, doing the merchandise, be the tour manager, be on stage, doing everything.
So, given all that in mind, that you have a lot more, let's say that you have more bandwidth for production value than all those years ago.
Yeah.
The 20th anniversary show is coming up. So what can we expect for that?
Yeah, first of all, that special Sahara Dust set. So that's already going to be special because we played there 20 years ago in that venue, a support act of Anathema, and we want to get that vibe back. So that's already going to be special. So people are going to hear a lot of early material. And next to that, we have big production, like from the Omega Live. Expect some things from that, in that direction. And also some classics, but also some songs that we don't play that often. We try to have a good overview of the last 20 years.
So a question that I have to ask you. You're originally the band is predominantly from the Netherlands. Let's call it, the patriot in me. I'm not really patriotic, but anyway, with Isaac in the band, I'm gonna call it a Belgian-Dutch band. But one of the more successful bands out of both these countries to arrive, not just in the world of metal, but just looking at album sold streams, popularity shows every year. However, with metal being what it is in Western Europe in the mainstream, you guys are like the biggest rock stars. Very few local people have actually heard about. And I know that Yves can walk around in Antwerp or in West Flanders without really being recognized, except for people that are into metal. This drastically changed for some time in Belgium, at least, when you guys very smartly navigate your way into the Jani Gaat op Reis TV show, which I thought was very smart. I was talking to Isaac about that, like very well played. And all of a sudden you have people like my mother asking me like, oh, have you heard about this band Epica? And it's like, yeah, I've been telling you for 20 years. Now it's on TV and you like it. What's that like in the Netherlands? Because I did see a difference in Belgium. But this was a Belgian TV show. So what's the current notoriety, if you will, of Epica in the Netherlands?
I think we had a steady grow in the Netherlands, but we never had a program like Jani in the Netherlands. We sometimes were like in a program prime time, playing like a 2-minute song or 3 minutes with what we got. And we once had a program called Niks te Gek, where you fulfill a wish of a guy with a handicap, and that also that program was repeated like 4 or 5 times on Dutch television. So some people got to know us from that program, but it's not like that there was one thing that made us suddenly famous in the Netherlands. So we can still walk over the street. It's always the same people that recognize me. That is basically the metal guys. So when I'm in my village, it's always the metal guys who say, hey Mark, how are you doing? And I also know them. So it's like a small scene, but that's also the way I like it. If I would walk the street and every time there would be, of course I like to be to talk with people and take a picture with them. But when I'm doing something else, I also like a bit to be a bit on my own. So I like it this way, a little bit of fame, but not too much. That's the perfect balance for me.
The album that you released was very well received. Does that mean that you're now, even though you've got all these tours coming and you've got a lot of things to worry about, are you like already actively working on that next album? We see a lot of bands in the last few years bring albums out closer together. A lot of people have had a lot of creativity or more time maybe in the last few years. This is a challenge now for you guys because you've set the bar higher.
And that's the thing. The album was so well received that we didn't feel like right away working on a new album, because we felt like this album has it all. if we now right away make a new album, it's gonna be a disappointing one because this one was so well received, can only get worse. But then we worked on something completely different. We did a sort of cooperation project, and that they're going to be a mini album released from that these sessions, and that was something so completely different that completely recharged our batteries. So now at least I started already writing some new material for our next album. I don't know if the other guys started, because we always like each on our own start collecting the first ideas. And then when we really agree then we go to the studio. Some guys start by then and some guys start already a bit earlier. But I always start whenever I feel inspired, and that moment already happened. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, so hey, question for you. I know that the song Storm the Sorrow is really inspired by Yves Hood's signature.
Yes, yes.
So what's the weirdest or most unexpected place or moment that inspired you?
It's always weird. For example, in the plane, and in the plane I'm usually very inspired. And back in the days I could never do something with it, but now and then already something happened that you could record on your phone. That was already a first step. But then I had to go to the bathroom of the plane recording my idea. But now you open your laptop and you can write a whole song on your laptop. So for me, it's great. During a flight, especially these overseas flights, so long you have nothing to do, and I get bored by watching movies. I cannot even finish one on such a little screen. So I get extremely bored. But when I can write music, then I'm often like, oh shit, we are almost arriving already. Shit, let this flight be longer.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, with all the flying that you're gonna be doing in the next few months, I can only imagine that you'll come back with like 100 new songs or something like that.
And once they were like writing about to ban laptops from planes. There was once a plan. And I thought, no, don't make that happen, because then I'm gonna get bored again.
All right, well, Mark, there's so much coming at you in the next few months, and I'm super excited for you and the whole band that this is, that the COVID pandemic has, not even the least slowed Epica down. In fact, it has accelerated you guys. And all the fans worldwide will be happy to see you guys tour to so many places and play big shows. And thank you also for the reissues of those early albums, because that's cool. A lot of people have been waiting for that. I could ask you a million more questions, but I know that you are on a very, very tight schedule, and I want to make sure you have at least a breather between two interviews. So Mark, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And especially again on the day after Wacken, which is pretty awesome. I hope that the rest of the schedule is not too hectic for you, and that you can also just sit back and enjoy that 20th anniversary moment and live up to the show.
Yeah, the thing is, there's one more interview, then I should go to bed, because tomorrow at 5:30 is the alarm already to go to the airport, because Amsterdam is a mess nowadays. It's the queues are extremely long. The last time the guys, because I didn't fly the last time from Amsterdam, but tomorrow I will, the guys were 4.5 hours waiting in the line, and they barely made it. Just because the flight was delayed, they made it. So I'm gonna look forward to it. I love your Maiden stuff on the background.
Awesome. Well, hey, Mark, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful, short night's sleep, and we'll follow you on all social media to see how the next two shows go. Thank you so much.
Even on short sleeps, you can sleep well, and I will.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it, and subscribe to the channel.